Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax, and let's chat about what's happening up in the stars for today, tomorrow, and Sunday. And trust me when I say there's quite a bit going on. It's not the volume so much of what's going on as it is more of the quality of what is going on, perhaps even the intensity of what is going on. I'm making room for myself and for my mic here. The quality of what's going on is that there's a lot of intensity. There's a lot of sort of here's my feeling is that I feel like we're building up to something. And I started feeling this yesterday, and it's almost like, and it's not a bad thing. Like, sometimes you can feel like something's building up to a bad thing, right? Or an explosion or something like that. That's not what I'm feeling. I'm feeling more like something that's building up, that's coming up maybe from the darker, deeper recesses of our souls, of our collective soul, perhaps, and ready to be released. And we're not quite there yet, but it's coming, it's building, and it's moving in that direction. Debbie says she feels that too. Good morning to you, Debbie. And I really tapped into it this morning, Debbie. And I don't know if that was because like nothing happened, and nothing's happening, and it doesn't feel bad. It just feels like something's coming and building so that we can release. And it takes a form of many different things for you in your life, right? It could be job changes, it could be home changes, it could be changes within you. And that's very possible as we have Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto all in retrograde motion. So it could be that there's a buildup to something that's changing within you. It could be the outer world. It could be something on the inner world. Either way you look at it, I feel it, and I feel like it's going to be big, and not big and bad, just big. And I think that's owing to the full moon that we are in the sort of shadow of here. And I think that's also why it is that it hasn't built up and released yet. It's waiting for, whatever it is that's building is going to be released with the full moon tomorrow. So let's talk about where we are today. Let's say who else is out here this morning. Debbie says, agree, not sure what it is. Good morning, Debbie Hedden. Good morning, Camille. Good morning, Michelle Gay. Joss says, good morning too. Good morning to you, Jocelyn. Loved your pictures. You looked so sweet in that outfit, the military outfit. You were absolutely gorgeous. And maybe you have a modeling in your career in the future. Let's see who else is checking in here with us. Good morning, Linda. She slept very little last night. Productivity is massive high. Love getting things done while I can. Very good. And Rebecca, good morning to you. She says, and we got blasted this week with solar flares. Good morning, Vicki. It's good to see you out there. So we have so much going on. Camille, love those earrings. Hey, can you tell they're peacocks? They're peacocks. And I love them. So this morning I just felt like peacocks, and it's chilly here again in the Northwest. We have those moments where we get that bright sunshine and it makes us think that summer's coming. And then the next week is nothing but rain and clouds. And that's where we are right now, is the cloud. And it's actually raining here at the moment, which is good, right? That's what keeps us green, and we need that rain. So I value that rain. And it's interesting because the moon is in Scorpio, and Washington State is a Scorpio state. Its birth date falls in November, and that makes it a Scorpio. And so here we are, moon in Scorpio, and the state being a Scorpio, Scorpio being water. You can put those things together sort of quickly. I actually, before I get into the energy of the day, I actually ran across a very interesting article the other day, or actually an interesting person. Periodically there are people in your world, and you guys might recognize them. They come in and they sort of shake up your paradigm in some way. or they act in a way that, you are reacting to in some very powerful way, whether it's a good reaction or a bad reaction. That's not my point. It's just, some people just have that effect on you, and you know it because somehow inside you're feeling the reaction. Well, the other day, I don't even know how I got here, but I ended up on this man's page that is an astrologer who believes that the world is in a global cooling. And you guys know that, of course, I studied science. That was my whole focus in college, was environmental science and biology and chemistry, kind of biochem, kind of as a moving into the environment. And I long suspected that the Earth, I feel the Earth is a living, breathing entity. And as such, has mechanisms such as your own body does, right? Your own body produces a fever when it's fighting off an infection. And I believe that the Earth, as a sentient being, has those same things. It may not be a fever, like we think and experience a fever, but certainly in her own way, the Earth has these feedback systems that course correct when things get out of control. The difference is her course corrections are based on geologic time, which is far greater, far longer than the time span of a normal human life. So we don't always get to see clearly what her course corrections are. So I thought it was an interesting theory. And indeed, when you look around the country, just this last couple of weeks, we've had snow in the north east and snow in the upper Midwest, vast amounts of water coming down the rivers and flooding. And so it seems crazy when you hear global warming, but then somebody comes along and says, it's global cooling. So I thought that was a paradigm shift, not a shift perhaps, but a shakeup, right? Something for us to consider, in that, everything that we do has an effect. Whether it is a big effect or a little effect, it doesn't really matter. But over the course of time, all those effects build up and have an effect. It's like when you, in your own body, when you're busy, you're not eating right, you're not taking care of yourself, inevitably what happens is some flu bug or cold virus comes along, you get that, and you're down for the count for a while. And that's kind of what we're doing here on the planet, is that we've had these runaway things that we've been doing to the planet. And at some point, she's going to go down. She's going to go down for the count. And her going down for the count might be brutal. It could be cold, it could be heat, it could be earthquakes, it could be fires, it could be floods, right? That's, we're on a small scale, but Earth is on a much bigger scale. So I just want you guys to keep an open mind when you hear things about global warming or global cooling. It's that the Earth is a natural, breathing, sentient being. Maybe not like you think of, human beings or animals and that kind of thing, but indeed she has systems in place to self-correct. Her correction steps just take longer than ours do. Okay. All right. Let's see what's going on. Anybody else out here? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Anybody I've missed? Eileen Seitz, good morning to you. And Vanita, good morning. And Trudy Barraza, good morning. Willa, good morning. I haven't seen you in a bit out there. And Debbie says, that's what I believe also, ice age, according to Earth core samples, and it causes weather to go nuts first. And so does global warming. And yet almost every ice age in human history has been preceded by high carbon dioxide levels, which we are also experiencing. I saw an article this week in, I want to say it was the magazine Nature, about how right now we are experiencing the highest CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere since something like the Paleozoic era, something like that, some way back time. And that makes sense, right? It could be the prelude to a cool down. There are also times in our history, and this is what I find most fascinating, because a lot of the building astrological transits right now, the ones that I'm writing about for 2020, are all sort of repeats of times gone past. For example, in the year 537, I believe, there was something called the Maunder minimum. And it was a time where it was preceded by a very deep solar minimum, where the sun's production of sunspots and heat producing. A sunspot is a hot spot on the sun. And when the sun has few sunspots, it's in the solar minimum. It is not generating a lot of heat. So lower heat production on the sun equals less heat, more cooling on the earth. And a Maunder minimum at that point triggered famine and went on for 100 years, right? It was like they called it the mini ice age. And there was talk about this perhaps being a lead into a mini ice age for us right now, with a deep solar minimum followed on the tails of another deep solar minimum just 11 years ago. So interesting times we live in, right? Things for us to consider, but yet not get into fear about, because there isn't anything about this that's fearful. These are all natural things. Humanity has lasted through many turmoils on this planet: floods, fires, earthquakes, ice ages, heating, volcanoes. You got it, right? We lived through it. We survived. Trudy says, yes, here in Florida, people are getting sick from flesh-eating bacteria. Yowza. It's because of all the bad choices we have made of chemicals running off into the water. How many of you are watching the Amazon Prime show called Chernobyl, about the nuclear meltdown that occurred back in 1986. I remember this profoundly because it happened just a few days after my mother passed on, and I had just found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And it was a very profound thing to have this almost catastrophic thing happening. And in many ways, it was catastrophic. And I can't help but wonder how much of that we may still be feeling, because so much of that got pumped into the atmosphere, so much radiation. And where did it go? If it's not still circulating, where did it go, right? Maybe it's fallen in rain, into the soil, into the groundwater, whereby we pick it up, we eat it, we drink it. It's an interesting thought. And so easy for us to have made such a tragic mistake that we could have killed the earth, right? We could have gone through another major Atlantean theme of total destruction and annihilation in order to have a new sense of humanity being birthed again. It's crazy, right? Just crazy stuff. But again, we have all of these things going on, but we don't have to go into fear about them. And that, I think, is what I think this full moon coming up tomorrow is really bringing to us. When I opened the show this morning, I said, and I think there was only Debbie and maybe Michelle there at the time, so I'm going to repeat it for those of you who are joining us now or joined us after I said that. I was feeling like we are being built. There's something building up, like the energy is building up to something to be released with the full moon tomorrow. And it didn't feel bad. It didn't feel dangerous. It didn't feel anything except sort of intense, or a recognition that it was there. And I can't tell you whether that's me personally or whether that's a collective feel that I'm getting. And complicating this is the fact that one of Scorpio's rulers, the moon is in Scorpio, the full moon in Scorpio. One of Scorpio's rulers is Mars. And Mars on Wednesday moved into the sign of Cancer. So now we have a lot of water moving back and forth. We have the full moon that's going to be in a sign of water. We have Mars, the planet of action that represents fire in water, which makes steam. So we have some, emotional things coming up from the depths. And it might be for us to release. I know yesterday on the Ascension and Astrology show, Cornelia and I got into a deep discussion about emotions, and water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, are all about emotions. And we have a lot of that emotional energy flowing through the systems right now. So it's up, and on top of that, today the moon is in a trine, an ease and flow, a relationship of ease and flow with the planet Neptune in Pisces. So all three water signs are triggered. And that means there's a lot of emotion, a lot of water, and a lot of our dealing with the shifting sands of moods and feelings. So people may be in reaction to some of that in your world, this today in particular, but also tomorrow as we build to that full moon. It could also be something that happens out in the outer world, somewhere around the world, that triggers emotions. there's so much that this could mean for us. But the idea that I want to bring to all of you is that you are in charge of your own emotions, right? Your emotions, you can't, I don't want you to squelch your emotions. I don't want you to overly express your emotions, but you have to feel your feelings. What was it Cornelia said last night? She said, you have to feel to heal. It means you can't completely step back from your feelings and expect to be able to heal them. You have to actually embody them. But by embodying them, you're not holding on to it and making it your truth. You're agreeing to feel what you're feeling and honoring that within you so that you can let that go. You can have that release from that feeling. You're not embracing it and saying, I want to keep you, right? I want to keep you depression, or I want to keep you melancholy, or I want to keep you anger. You're saying, I want to feel it. I want to know more about it. Where's it coming from? What triggered it? How do I, what does this remind me of? That's always a great one. What does this remind me of? And then you just love it and then watch it as it dissipates or releases from you. That is the correct way to work with your feelings, not to put it away and push it off. Like, I don't want to feel this. I don't want that. We may not want to feel depression. We may not want to feel upset or angry, but it's a part of who you are and it's genuine. So right now we're dealing. Oh my God, I can't believe I just read that, Debbie. Oh my God. She says too many cows farting, which is probably true. Methane into the atmosphere, right? Craziness. Um, okay. Feelings. Feel your feelings, but do not attach yourself to that and hold on to that. Love it for what it's worth, but first ask about, internally, have an internal dialogue about what it is this is bringing you to. What is it reminding you of? What situation in your life haven't you completely healed and you got triggered about, etc. And be able to move through this, because the moon in Scorpio is very much about being able to release, right? And to complete and to bring into fullness. And adding to that, today, excuse me, is Mercury in a trine to Pluto. A trine, again, an ease and flow of energy between the planet of communication, your mind, and the planet of transformation and basically the deep, dark dive into the underworld. So, Mercury at this point is on its way to conjunct the sun early next week. So, it's going through the last of its cycle here, and the last couple of things that it does are very intense. Trining Pluto, that means that those emotions that we're feeling have to be grounded into something. They can't, there's these floating feelings, and we've got to be able to tap into them and discover what they really mean for us and where it is that we're being pushed to grow and evolve and to release and to let go, to bring into completion. And I suspect, this is just my suspicion, and my suspicions are usually based, what is that called? An educated guess. My suspicion is that a lot of what we are releasing right now has to do with lack, abundance, scarcity, greed, and that old paradigm of, I need all the toys, I need all the money, right? I'm collecting because it gives me power. I feel like that's the big thing that we are all releasing. And even though you may not be a billionaire, you may not be one of the power brokers, masters of the universe. Um, if you are and you're watching my show, that's awesome. But I feel like, we're all the ordinary, usual, everyday kind of people that watch my show here. Look to your own personal life, and where is it that you are still tapped into that energy of lack or scarcity or fear around not having enough, not being enough, not doing enough. Because now, we're saying that this full moon is across both Taurus, the sun is in Taurus, the moon is in Scorpio. That whole entire axis is one of finances and abundance and flow. To add to that, the sun and earth have just moved into interesting gates that flow with this kind of energy. The sun has moved it to gate 8, and gate 8, it sits, let me show you a picture of the human design chart, which I know I printed. Here we go. Here's the human design chart for the day. And gate 8 sits right here on the throat center and reaches down to the soul center or to the identity center. It is called the gate of contribution, right? So all of us, our focus should be on what is our specific contribution to the world, not on not on money, not on is this, something that's going to produce for me, but is this something that is heart centered? Is this something that real, because remember, this is, manifesting energy in the throat that's moving down to the identity center. So this is connecting you up with the truth of who you are and the truth of um your gift that you brought to the planet. What is it you are here to share? Okay. Now, the other gate that's interesting is the earth is at gate 14. Gate 14 sits on the sacral down here. So it's an energy of doing. Right here's the sacral center. And you'll note we don't have a channel that completes that today. But in your own human design, if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, you have this defined. And now today we have the gate 14, and the gate 14 is hanging there. It's hanging there, ready to move up to the identity center, just as gate 8 is hanging there, ready to move down to the identity center. And all it requires is our movement of energy toward aligning with our contribution point. What is it that you have? What niche, what skill, what talent is it that you have here on the planet to share with everybody? And I don't care what it is. It could be a talent for making donuts. It could be a talent for singing. It could be a talent for doing astrology or walking, talking, right? Any number of things. And it's as unique as each of us as individuals that, we have this gift to share. Now, gate 14 is a gate of prosperity. It brings money into your doing. The gate 14 on the sacral says, I work for money, but it could just as easily say, I work for shells. I work for thanks. I work for fill in the blank, chickens, right? It doesn't necessarily, it appreciates and has gratitude for what it receives in return for its giving. So we are tapping into a natural flow here. And it just so happens that on the planet at the moment, we trade dollars for time or for work or for products, etc. Right? Money is sort of the medium through which we exchange energy, right? We buy our rent or our house payments or our food with money. And that doesn't mean there aren't bartering systems and things out there, because there are. But for the most part, the gate 14 is triggering this idea of when I contribute from my soul, I earn and receive something in return, right? Typically money. I hope that makes sense for everybody. So that's we're all tapping into that energy deep below the surface. It's all about this idea of flow and how flow is a part of receiving. 14 terminates up at gate 2 in the identity center, which is the gate of receiving. So it is about giving and receiving, exchanging, right? Giving, receiving. So that's also a part of this full moon, in that whatever stands in the way from your receiving and giving has to go. You're complete with, right? You're complete with that. It might be the victim energy of not having enough. It could be the victim energy of low self-esteem, low self-worth, and inadequacy. It's got to go, right? It's got to go, because we need you to contribute from your heart, from your soul. Okay, so that's a backdrop. Now, Mercury trining Pluto then is also guaranteeing that we are moving through these deeper, darker places, and that you may be triggered. We talked about all of the different deep emotional things, the core wounds yesterday on the Ascension and Astrology show. They are pretty much, and I might leave some out, there's guilt, shame, betrayal, abandonment, and there are 2 more, and I don't remember what they are. Guilt, shame, abandonment, betrayal, lack. many of them. And there are layers within each one of those things as well, right? But each one of those core wounds has as its opposite a core gift. And it's our job then to seek the opposing side. So if you're dealing with betrayal, then what you're looking for is trust, right? If you're dealing with abandonment, what you're looking for is inclusivity. So we can move through these deeper triggers right now by looking at it upside down, sort of, right? Seeing what would be its opposite, right? What would be its opposite? The opposite of anger would be peace, would be serenity or harmony. So when we feel these things, what we're noticing then is the lack of the opposite, or the fact that we want the opposite energy. And we can set about to bring that into our world. Such is the power that we are feeling right now here today. Added to that is a minor, it's funny to call this a minor aspect, but in reality, as astrology goes, the quincunx is a minor aspect. But I think that in our world right now, because things are so near the surface and so uh, the feelings are just simmering, right? Everything in the planet right now seems to be just simmering, right? So even those minor little aspect that planets make to one another can send us over an edge, right? Because we're so near that edge. And today we have a Mercury quincunx Jupiter. And, a quincunx is a 150-degree angle or relationship between the two planets, which puts them into alien territory. It's that Mercury in Taurus does not really understand Jupiter in Sagittarius. They're two different types of energy. And what it creates within us is a waffling feeling, right? That we're not sure about what direction to go, who we want to be, what our truth is. And so that sort of stirs underneath the surface. And I can almost feel it with each of you out there right now who are struggling with this. And I don't mean all of you are struggling. Maybe you are. But certainly we are all, in this in some way, with that feeling of, what is my truth? What is it I'm here to do? Where do I need to go? What do I need to release? All of those questions create this tension within us. And then this Mercury quincunx Jupiter makes it hard to land in any one direction. So the best way to deal with this is to just allow this energy to flow. Just allow it to come up and flow through you, and keep going back to your truth. The truth is, I love astrology. I'm going to do astrology. I love human design. That's what I'm going to keep doing. And whatever that is for you, where your gifts and your talents lie. So let's just see here what everybody's saying about that. Camille says, great advice. One doesn't want to feel the hurt or relive the pain, but acknowledge, accept, forgive, and release. Absolutely. And, eventually over time, as these triggers come up, you slowly realize, wow, I wasn't triggered by that anymore, right? The fact that that person said or did something like that, I'm not triggered by it. Yay, right? That's the thing that we want to get to, the point where we're not reacting to it because we've cleaned out all of that residual anger or abandonment or whatever it is, right? The feelings. All right, Trudy says, feelings of inadequacy are something we can all relate to. Yes. There is a gate in your human design, Trudy, the gate 48, which can sometimes trigger that inadequacy. And what that does to us then is create a situation where we keep wanting to learn more, get more degrees, read another book, take another class, get another certification in order to feel like we know enough. And it becomes an endless loop of energy, right? Where you never feel adequate enough. You'll never have enough credentials, enough letters after your last name that make you feel like you know enough. If you're dealing with inadequacy, the best thing to do is to go in and find out where that began. Did it begin with a chance comment by one of your parents? By you being forced to go to school and learn math, and you never really liked math, and you got failing grades in math, and somehow your parents, being scientists, didn't appreciate the fact that you couldn't learn math, and so you learned to be feeling inadequate about that. You took it personally. And irregardless of what your parents or teachers or whoever it was that started this for you said or did, your feelings are your own, right? That's the key. We have to be responsible for our own things. Yeah, it's true. Our parents messed us up. We messed our own kids up. And every time I look at that in my own life, I'm like, you should have known better. Right. And I want to start to beat myself up about it. But they did, we do what the best that we can do based on who we are in that moment. But it is up to each one of us to take responsibility for where we are in all of that and get past it, right? Heal it, move through it. Um, Camille says, I can relate to 48. We all have a gate 48. Some of you have it defined, some of you have it open. Um, so we all have gate 48 and we all have to work through those feelings of inadequacy at times. Yeah. Right. End the blame game. Exactly, Trudy. You got it. End the blame game. Take responsibility, love yourself in spite of it, and move forward, right? Keep going in the healing process. All right. So that's all just for today, right? That's all we were talking about. All of that we were talking about is just about today. Let's move into tomorrow because tomorrow is, of course, we're still building that full moon isn't until 2:12 p.m. Pacific time, 5:12 p.m. East Coast time. And the moon will be in Scorpio. It'll be in the lighter degrees of Scorpio, 27 degrees, some minutes. Actually, I could probably tell you that because I have, not that you guys really care, 27 degrees, 39 minutes. So, for all intents and purposes, we're at the 28th degree. And it is in the latter degrees of Scorpio where we begin the transformation through the Phoenix. Right. If you've been with me long enough, you know, we've talked about Scorpio as it transitions from the scorpion into the eagle and then ultimately the phoenix, right? Dying in immolation and rebirthing from the ashes into something new and youthful and dynamic. That's the path that Scorpio takes. In fact, it's one of the only it is the only sign I can think of that has this series of levels that are so obvious in it, right? That it's so obvious. So we're dealing with the transformation end of this. We're becoming like the phoenix, dying to something and rebirthing to something else. And what is really fascinating about this full moon, well, there's several things fascinating that make it highly energetic, but what I discovered this morning as I was really looking at this is that the moon turns void of course at the very moment the moon becomes full. And a void of course moon means that there are no other aspects that the moon is making until the void is over, and the void is over at 6:22 p.m. tomorrow afternoon or evening, 9:22 p.m. for you all on the East Coast. So we have about a 4-hour void of course moon following a full moon. Talk about sitting in your pity potty, right? This is, if you get on that pity potty, there's a long stretch of time for you to sit on this pity potty. On the other end, though, it gives us the time and the space to really work through the deeper, darker issues that each one of us are grappling with. Every one of us is, even me, right? We are digging through that, whatever's left, right? The vestiges of the untruths about who you are. So we have this extended releasing, completing, and revealing time based on the full moon happening at the same time a void of course moon is happening. 4 hours, friends, 4 hours. It's like we're hanging, right? You know how when you're on a Ferris wheel, right? And you get to the top and and you, for a time, you hang before you move over. And that's what we're doing. We're hanging there in the void. And in the void, all things are possible and nothing is possible. So sitting with that now, you know, on a Saturday, we're busy, we have families. I have a birthday party to go to. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts us during this time period. Because it's not going to give me much time personally to be releasing and working through issues. But I will bet you there's something tomorrow that perhaps triggers me that I get to process on the fly and I get to work through on the fly. I don't know what it will be. It may not be anything big, but I know that that's what is going to happen for all of us because for 4 hours there, we're hanging in that empty space and creating something in that empty space is also your right and your privilege. What would you like to create, right? In the space of no thing, what would you like to have as your something? I hope that makes sense to everybody. There's also a Venus conjunct Uranus happening right in tandem with the full moon, and Venus represents our values, our relationships, our money, and she is in the sign of Taurus, her rulership, right? She loves the sign of Taurus. In Taurus, she is sensuous, sensual. She is very much aligned with her values, and she lives from that core of her values, and she nurtures them. She takes the time to build on what it is that is true for her. And I'm going to tell you, this is also what is true for us as human beings right now. Venus in Taurus is bringing us to a point where we begin to really live from the values. We can't speak a value and then live opposite from that value. Does that make sense? We've been doing that, right? We want to create unity and togetherness, and then we vote in people, or we have leaders in our world who promote exclusivity, right? That push us in a direction that isn't in the mouthpiece of unity that we're speaking about, that we are trying to create. So we have to look at that within ourselves. And I'm not saying it's not wrong. It's not wrong if you're in a different direction, but you got to come then to your truth. You've got to come into a point where you're, you know, moving together with your values and not saying one thing and moving in a different direction. I hope that makes sense to everybody because, for example, if you're someone who really wants to do what it is that you love to do, let's say you really love to work with children, right? That's your first love, your only love, but you keep finding yourself working with older people, or finding yourself not working with people at all. You're stuck in an office all by yourselves. You're out of alignment. You're out of alignment with your first love, with your value, right? And that's probably not a very good one to bring up. But I think maybe even some of you, as you're thinking about this morning, where might you be out of alignment with a stated value that you have, right? So, for example, if you value healing and you value health, but you find yourself eating crappy foods and not exercising, or, not taking care of your body, it's incongruent, right? You're working at cross purposes. So, finding your values, aligning with your values, and living from your values. That's a biggie. Now, as far as relationships go, in with Venus and Taurus, I said it's all about the senses, it's sensual. We can even look to human design for that, because tomorrow, is that tomorrow or today? It is the 17th. So today, Venus moves into the gate 27. And the gate 27 is literally the gate of nurturing, the gate of feeding, the gate of cooking, the gate of taking care of, passing on the values to our younger children, or to our communities, our tribes. So I want to show you where this is in the chart. It is sitting right here. Here's gate 27. And Venus and Uranus are sitting there. Uranus has been sitting there for a while now. Actually, we've been, possibly, being triggered all along to align ourselves with our values, right? And I think we've talked about this many different times. And Uranus brings up surprises, or ahas, epiphany, surprise. Hello, I'm here. House falls on your head, around you. Yesterday, my computer stopped working. Surprise, right? Money you have to spend now on fixing your computer. Luckily, my husband's laptop works for the morning broadcast, but it was a sore point with me yesterday, because you guys know how I struggled in January. Luckily, this time it was just a fan, and it's replaceable. I'll have my computer in a few days, but it's that surprise atmosphere that we are living in right now, and will continue to live through in this full moon. Right? Venus conjunct Uranus tells us that there's something surprising that may come up. It could be a surprise reaction that you have to something going on around you. It could be a person that plays the role of surprise for you. It could be many different things. Not always positive, not always negative, just surprising, right? Ahas that come up, and you go, wow, why didn't I see that before? So expect surprises, right? Expect surprises, but also, The planets Saturn and Pluto are also in this full moon in a sextile relationship to the moon. A sextile is a relationship that is focused on sharing of gifts and talents. So we get another little echo with this full moon tomorrow about really bringing out your gifts and your talents to share with the world in whatever way that is. It might be in just your daily day-to-day life in dealing with your family, dealing with your friends. It might be in the work that you do. It might be in the way that you deal with people when you're just out and about shopping or whatever. But it is really about living from your values and working through any of those issues that you find in your life that trigger you. Now, why did I write that? Oh, Sunday. 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 Sunday is actually sort of a blessed day, and a well-earned day off, if you will, as the moon is making no new connections on Sunday at all. It's not necessarily in a void either. Let me check and make sure because I didn't check that. No, it's not in void. It just isn't doing anything spectacular that day because it's already done all the spectacular stuff on Friday, today, and on Sunday with the full moon. So it might be a good day to relax. It might be a good day to have some fun, get out in nature. The moon will have transitioned into Sagittarius at that point. So we're living through adventure. We're living through optimism and hope. So it is, I think Sunday of the 3 days is going to probably be the best day of the weekend, and likely the one where we can recoup, relax, enjoy, and kind of, get back to living our lives, right? Get back to living without all of this, stuff coming up. Let's see. I wanted to tell you something about the gene keys with this gate 27, especially because even though Venus moves off of this gate in just a couple of days, Uranus will still be sitting there at this gate for a while. And the gate is remember how in the gene keys, everything is arranged in a holographic sort of setup, meaning it's dimensional. It has dimension to it. It's not just, 2D, it's more 5D-ish, right? 4D. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, except it's dimensional. And in those dimensions, we have these 3 levels. We have the shadow expression of the gate, we have the gift expression of the gate, and then we have the siddhi, which is the highest expression of the gate. And the gate 27, as we've already talked about, is the gate that really takes us to nurturing, feeding, sharing values, building and solidifying the togetherness of the tribe. And it is distinctly feminine. This is distinctly feminine energy. When you look at a human design chart, this whole channel right here is feminine. The one that connects the sacral over here to the spleen, feminine. The one that connects the sacral over to the emotions, masculine. Now, isn't that interesting? Right? The gate that connects, the channel that connects us to health, healing, intuition, time, and fear is feminine, while the gate that connects us to the emotional center is masculine. Interesting. That's a deeper dive that we'll take someday, perhaps, about why would that be. But it is distinctly the feminine's job to pass on the values of the tribe to the younger children or to the youth, and then dictates to the masculine that these are the rules and these are how we are going to these are the rules we live by. We're going to live by. Our children are going to be fed, they're going to be educated, they're going to note when you look at female politicians, and not a party affiliation, but when you look at what female politicians naturally gravitate toward versus what the masculine gravitates toward, the women are often much more engaged in children's topics, in food topics, in money that would go to education and student loans, things like that, right? That's their focus. It's not their only focus, but you can see that that's their interest, where the masculine often ends up more in foreign relations and money for the military, because the masculine's job is protection of the fatherland, the homeland, of the tribe, of the community, of the country, the nation, while the feminine says, but we've got to bring it home first, right? We got to take care of our base. The weakest link is what is where we need to focus our time, energy, money, so that we can raise everybody up. So the feminine energy for us right now is moving us from selfish, which is the shadow energy where Venus and Uranus are sitting, to the gift energy of altruism, right? Altruism, and ultimately leads us to the gift, or to the city, which is selflessness. So gate 27, juicy, juicy stuff, right? It's about giving and receiving again. We that first big theme that we talked about here with the full moon energy across Taurus and Scorpio, in terms of abundance and flow, is also taking us through nurturing of more selflessness, of altruism, where we are giving and receiving in measure, right? Okay, let's see. Anybody have questions out there? I haven't really been watching the comments. Sorry. Hi, Gail. Trish Zook, I had to share this with. Oh, so she's talking to someone else. Okay. Camille says, yes, it makes perfect sense. I have been looking for the unity since 1960s, at least on the world stage. It's building, but it takes time because that older paradigm is so entrenched. It is so entrenched. You know, even people in the spiritual realm have issues around unity, right? It's crazy, but it's there. And we have to work through that within each one of ourselves. Trudy, intense emotional energy for like the next 6 weeks. Oh, joy, LOL. Um, Trudy, I'll tell you a secret. It's not just the next 6 weeks. She's speaking about Mars being in Cancer until July 1st, which is about 6 weeks. But then we enter into the eclipse season, and the eclipse is being driven by the moon in Cancer, the North Node in Cancer. If you think it's over, it isn't, right? We then have the month of July with eclipses and happening across Cancer and Capricorn, which further has us working on the structure and foundation of our feelings, of our nurturing, of our families, of our values. So it isn't over. It's not over by a long shot. And then Mercury also retrogrades in Cancer in July, from July 7th to the 31st. So get good now at dealing with emotion, at understanding emotion and the power of your emotions and what your emotions are bringing to you, because it isn't over, right? It's not, we're dealing with this because there is an evolutionary impulse that's moving through our DNA, bringing us to emotional maturity. And we are not emotionally mature in any way, shape, form, or sense of the word, right? We are babies when it comes to emotional maturity, as we've been living through the spleen for most of our evolution. And that was about instinct, and instinct born out of survival energies that have since morphed into fears, false evidence appearing real, right? The fears that we have that aren't real. And we're being pushed through to evolve emotionally. And that's a process. And so get comfortable with the process, because it's here to stay, right? The actual evolutionary leap occurs in 2027. One of these days, I'm going to research that deeper, find out how people came to that date. I know that date was brought up when Ra channeled in or transmitted the energy of human design astrology, but it's so obvious that that's what's happening on the planet that, you can't dispute it. It's definitely here. It's definitely what's happening. So get comfortable processing your emotions, feeling your emotions, learning how not to react to your feelings, and what do you do when you feel one way or another. How to use your emotions as a barometer of what's going on in your mind, because your feelings and emotions are often triggered by a thought, right? An action or something happens in your outer world, you immediately think about something that's usually linked to the past, about what that means when that person said that to you or when that person did that to you. And then it becomes sealed in the solar plexus as an emotion that you then have to work with, right? You have to work with. So get comfortable. We're in it for the long haul. Uh, Eileen says, do you know the degree of the eclipse? Being I'm a Cancer and have 3 planets in Cancer. I, off the top of my head, do not know the degree of the eclipse. Although, if I had my own computer here, I'd have the file of it. I want to say, Eileen, it's like 22 or 23 degrees of Cancer, but I'm not certain. I can check that for you though, and I'll messenger you the date, okay? Since I have you on Messenger. But that is a good question, and it is coming up, but not until July. But in the meantime, we have all of these opportunities to learn to work with emotion. Take the opportunity and run with it, okay? It will serve you in the future. I can guarantee it. Sarah Ravenseye, good morning. I'm working on it. A lot to emotionally process lately, and you're so freaking young. This is so awesome because it is the millennials, right? They're the harbingers. She's a millennial, by the way. She's 27 years old, Sarah is. And I know many of you out there are, listening. I tend to draw in some of those millennial beings, possibly because I understand you. I get you, right? I'm probably one of the few baby boomers out there that actually get what's going on with the millennials. And that's because they are the harbingers of that solar plexus evolution. They come here specifically to deal with that emotional energy. They're bridging it. They're bridging that old spleen, fear based energy into the solar plexus energy that does what they do because they feel good about it. They do what feels good, what feels right, where our older generations, baby boomers, and even Gen Xers in some way, who were uberly influenced by their parents, who were baby boomers, to go out and work for a living, to go out and do things, stick with things, pick something and stick with it your whole damn life, right? Where the millennials go, but that doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel right. So they find that they are sort of feeling like square pegs in a round hole. They don't quite fit with the world that has been built for them because they're the bridging world changers, right? They're the ones that are beginning the change. They're shifting that energy from that old paradigm model that says duty and nationalism and all of that kind of stuff into more about, well, but that doesn't feel good to me. What feels good to me is this, being like that, doing that. And that is where we're headed to. It's an evolutionary pulse that's moving through them. So I get them. I get it. And I would bet that a lot of you who join me here in the morning also get this, because it's becoming more and more obvious, isn't it? That we need to do something different. That the old way of doing things, the make America great again, bullshit that we've been being fed, isn't the right way to go about this. So we have to make ourselves great by living our own truths, living our truth, living from a place of bringing unity instead of pushing people off to the margins or pushing things out to the edges that we don't want, right? The more we push things out to the edges, the more we have to deal with it, because it's going to keep coming up, keep coming up, keep coming up. So lots and lots of stuff out there in the world for us to work through. But really, your own responsibility is to work on your reactions to these things. So there you have that. Natasha, good morning to you. I guess now is the reason why I've lived with the Leo alcoholic and being a Cancer 30 years to figure out how to balance fire and water to make wonderful steam. That's a good way to look at it. Emotions are a great friend once we walk and in an ever moving balance with our knowing and doing. That's pretty profound and pretty meaningful when you think about it. Eileen says, great. I am 5-9 degrees, so it's way past. Possibly, but it's still happening in your sign. It's happening to everybody, but not directly on you, perhaps. Camille, Cancer here, also have already noticed the thoughts and asking myself about the trigger, acknowledging, processing, releasing, moving forward with less baggage, especially the bags thrust upon me that I held but no longer want. Wow. I once participated in, I think it was called the Landmark program, Landmark something. I went to a couple of meetings, and and then it was just way too much for me. They were way out there. But one thing that I got from my experience with Landmark was this idea of baggage. And it was hysterical because the girl who was teaching about it had on the stage, she had a backpack, a suitcase, a rolly suitcase, a purse and another purse and another bag. And, while she's talking to us about baggage, about our emotions and our feelings and the past, she keeps putting on another bag, right? And uh, before long, she is so burdened by these bags, this baggage, that she can't hardly even stand up, right? She's like bending over, almost falling from the weight of this baggage. And it was such a profound metaphor for what we do, right? We carry around all this baggage with us. The full moon's proximity to today, actually, to Mercury with Saturn and Pluto helps us be communicated what that baggage is for us so that we can choose to let it go. Saturn and Pluto both are working together to both destroy everything that is not sustainable and also to help us release it and move it on. So we get this, ability right now to look at the bags. What am I holding on to? What is that? What is in that backpack? Because it's awfully darn heavy, right? So good. That's good. Hi, Lynn. She says, I'm learning late. Learning to observe and feel emotions, knowing we are not our emotions is key. Exactly. You are not your emotions. You are feeling your emotions. And your emotions act as information that's coming into you to let you know where your mind is, I think, right? What is my mind focused on? My mind is focused on the past. My mind is focused on what happened to me as a child, or the things I perceive in my past that didn't work out, and I'm focused on that, and I'm bringing it with me into the now, and I'm projecting it out into a future that hasn't even happened yet. So much about ourselves that we need to work with. Landmark Forum, that's what it was called. Thank you, Lynn. Worth its weight in gold. I hated every minute of it. I did not resonate with those people at all, with the exception of the baggage metaphor, which was huge. That piece was huge for me. And I really think it wasn't so much what they were saying, it was their sales techniques, and their purpose wasn't just to educate people, it was to drive sales. And I saw through that right in the first 10 minutes I was in there. Okay, so there was something else I wanted to say. I think I need to come to the end of this. We have the entire weekend ahead of us. Make it a good one. You have the power. By the way, for those of you who are listening who are members of the Living Astrology Academy, remember today, speaking of forum, today at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. East Coast time is our forum. And if you are a member, you have access to the Zoom link. Bring your human design chart, bring your astrology chart, ask your questions. Whatever it is that you want to know about you, this is your chance to do it. I will sit there with you for an hour. Whoever shows up, I will go through the process of your chart with you. It may be a little bit challenging for me because my human design program is on my computer in the shop, but I will make it work somehow. So 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. East Coast time. You can find the link in your Living Astrology Academy membership back office in Teachable. If you don't know how to find that, email me at livingastrology111@gmail.com. And for those of you who, thank you for the reminder, Lynn, I will get to that here. And for those of you who are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, I have a membership program where you get access to webinars and to courses as I'm building them, and also to this monthly forum where it's your opportunity to bring all of your questions about your chart, about what makes you tick, about things that you've pondered about astrology, human design, Pleiadian earth energy, oracles, whatever, right? It's a metaphysical hour of our moving through your questions. I also record that. So if you're not able to make it live today, you can send me your questions and I will try to work through that. It depends on how many people are actually in there. So 3 to 4 p.m. or 6 to 7 p.m. tonight. And you can still join. If you join the membership today, it's $13 a month. If you join today, you have access to all of the benefits right away. So you can do that. I'll post that link for you when I'm done here this morning. Recommendation by Lynn out there to talk about the Pleiadian Earth energy calendar. Thank you for that reminder. Yesterday was the one day of the new 13-day week. It was one evolving. Isn't that interesting? Because without really thinking about that, I've been talking this morning about evolution, about where we are going. And even though today is the 2-day of the week, the one evolving drives the energy for the whole 13-day week, sets the tone. So everything that comes after it is all about the energy of evolving. So the next 13 days, we are evolving. Today is 2 self-regulating. I got to look that one up. 2 self-regulating. Of course, 2 we know is about duality. That is the universal energy today. There challenges us to look at and accept opposite perspectives, to see 2 ends, right? And try to bring it into the middle. Self-regulating is out of the north. It is demonstrating competency, making hard choices. And in the shadow, or the inappropriate response, is confusion. So if you fall into confusion sometime today, likely your mind is in the wrong place, right? You're in the wrong place. And in Mayan, that was the date Etznob. And Etznob represented the flint knife, or the obsidian knife, excuse me. And the obsidian knife used to cut through in clean lines to the heart of something. Literally, in the Maya, it was cutting into the heart of their victim, or their sacrifice, the sacrificial person. But it speaks to the ability that we have to get right to the heart of something, right? To dig right in and to find the cause, the root of a problem, perhaps, using the trigger to get to the deeper reason why something is happening. And that's the energy for today. I guess I should tell you also, tomorrow is a 3-day, 3 catalyzing. Now that's a powerful day to have a full moon, right? Catalyzing. And as Pleiadian Earth energy astrology and Mayan astrology moves from sunset to sunset, not like our days that begin at midnight and move to the next midnight. Theirs began at sunset. So the energy of the full moon is definitely in catalyzing, using challenges as creative opportunities. And the negative side of that is about reacting with drama or disappointment. So if you're surprised by something or triggered by something, don't let it go into the drama. Or maybe you're witnessing somebody else's trauma and wanting to tell them to deal with their own stuff on their own self by themselves. The energy of the universal energy 3 is about creating, inspires us to create new things or think in new ways. That's a pretty good energy, I think, for a full moon. And Sunday's energy then would be a 4. 4 is enlightening. So the universal energy 4 is about foundations, brings stability. And it brings stability in your home, work, family, your traditions. It's very Cancer sounding. And what was the energy of? I said enlightening. And enlightening is a how. It is the very final sign in the series. It is the 20th of the Earth energies, and it's committing to ideals and the opportunity for social progress. And on the negative, it's about polarized judgment. Ushka, ushka, ushka. Wow, 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 wow. So get your copy of the Pleiadian Earth Energy Calendar. Easy deal. Go to piaorlean.com and you can order your calendar. I'm not sure if you can get the calendar on Amazon. I know you can get the book on Amazon, but I'm not sure about the calendar. So here is www.piaorlean.com. There we go. That's where you can get your copy of the calendar. Let's pull a card. Shall we pull a card? I know it's getting late and I have to go because I have a reading in 20 minutes. Donna Blevins, good morning to you, sweetheart. She says, sounds like mind-shifting triggers on a universal scale. Oh, gosh, in a big way. Wonderful quick check-in, heading a coaching session, bumped into you, so blessed. Awesome, thank you. I'm going to pull a card for us for the full moon, and then I have to go. I really have to fly. So let's just do that. I'm pulling it from the Wisdom of the Wisdom of the Oracle by Colette Baron Reed. And let's see what Wota has to say. Oh, two cards jumped out. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's look at them. Orphaned, upside down, and truth be told, right side up. So, orphaned and truth be told. Orphaned is card 5, and truth be told is card 14. Interesting because that echoes our Earth at gate 14 right now. So let's see what orphaned means. Well, we can guess, can't we? Orphaned, the essential meaning is a sense of loss, an identity crisis, recognizing that you don't fit in, the need to belong, and uncertainty about your place. The protection message for that card is the shadow side of this card speaks to the essence of abandonment. Perhaps you feel a need to remain apart because intimacy is too threatening. It also warns against creating inappropriate family structures in order to conceal old wounds. It's time to address the unhealthy alliances you've formed and make a decision to heal the past. You will not be abandoned by the world if you claim yourself as whole. Not all relationships are dysfunctional, and not all of them will disappoint you. Don't abandon yourself. You can connect to others in a healthy way once you recognize your patterns and consciously choose to interrupt them. Life wants to love you. Let it. Love that. It's interesting because we spent a lot of time yesterday in Ascension and Astrology with the issue of abandonment. So it's obviously it's up in the field. I mean, we're hearing it through two separate people's viewpoints yesterday. We're hearing it through the astrology of today. Anyway, the possibility of working through it. And now our cards are giving us this. So card 14 is truth be told. Stop living in the lie, I guess is what this is going to be about. The essential meaning, honesty, accepting things at face value, coming out of denial, the willingness to be transparent, clarity of communication. The oracle's message here is there is the truth, which is the essence of a thing, and then there is a truth, subjective according to the philosophy of the adherent or believer. This is not a time for debate about which truth is truer. This is a time when you are called to proclaim your truth out loud and be willing to be transparent, honest, and open in your communication with others and with yourself. Nothing less than surrender to what is. Peeling off the layers of denial that kept you tied to an illusion will set you free. Be authentic and gloriously flawed, and spirit will answer with miracles. Love that. All right. So, everybody, have a great weekend. For those of you in the membership, I will see you this afternoon at 3 o'clock, and have a great day. Donna says, pull my card, please. Do you want me to pull you a card, Donna? I'll do it just for you, Donna, because you haven't been here before for me to draw you a card. But maybe that card was for you. Or nope. Donna Blevins, you have time to go. Upside down, card number 45, which is a 9. And upside down means it's in protection. So let's take a look at card 45. And then I'm going. Donna, time to go says endings, completion, walking away from something because there is nothing else to learn or experience. You are, let's see, protection. Even if it appears that you've reached the end of the line and all is lost, it isn't. You're in a situation that will resurface again later, so consider this as a break rather than an ending. Destiny is in charge here. You lose nothing and gain everything when you surrender to that fact. Your soul knows that your destiny is unfolding with perfect timing and synchronicity. Your small self has doubts, but that is natural as it doesn't have the map of your destiny. The soul does. Spirit loves you. Trust that. I hope that helps you. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a fabulous weekend. I will see you on Monday morning right here at 8 a.m. for the weekly astrology report. All right. Bye for now.